Welcome to the Human Conversation podcast with Jules White, the real dragon slayer, author and entrepreneur sales coach. Tune in weekly for human conversation about business and sales. Enjoy business expert interviews, educational episodes, and virtual cuppers with entrepreneur business owners. So grab yourself a cuppa and enjoy. Here is your host, Jules White.
So hi everyone and welcome to the Human Conversation, and this is episode 18, and I have got an amazing guy with me on my podcast today. This guy is from across the pond, so he's actually based in Dallas. Is that right, Dallas, Ali?
Yes, Dallas, Texas. Yep.
Dallas, Texas. And he's Ali Mirza. So on LinkedIn, we're big pals on LinkedIn, Ali and I. We've chatted and connected for a long time. And this is the first time we've actually spoken to each other and had a human conversation. So I am so excited. I've got a list of questions that I want to ask him. But just before I start to get you to talk to us, Ali, on his profile on LinkedIn, he tells us that he helps business owners make social media a consistent lead generation channel. Ali, welcome to my podcast.
Well, thank you so much, Jules. I think we've known each other. We're sort of like LinkedIn friends and for a while. So thank you so much for inviting on the show. I'm happy to be here, and let's do it.
Yeah, let's find out. So I've got things I want to know because, you know, the difference here, Ali, I'm not going to ask you your age. It's rude for me to do that.
Okay.
I reckon I am probably old enough to be your mother. So I kind of have, I think what's interesting is we have a generation gap, you know, in terms of when I first started to work, we had no internet, we had no World Wide Web, no mobile phones. I mean, can you imagine this world that I lived in, Ali?
Yeah, and you know, it's funny that you say that because there's a lot of talk about millennials and Gen Z and how they transition. And I see we miss, because the people like us or people like you know, people who lived in the sort of like other times, and now you're seeing this transition, and not only seeing it, you are in the transition, you're making it happen.
Yeah.
Because if you look at, I think we both produce a lot of content on LinkedIn and social. A lot of people, it's not just the millennials and Gen Z. A lot of people who are producing content, learning about the social technology, social media platforms, they are much, much older. And that excites me because, you know, it's all about learning and then, you know, improving and then getting better.
Yeah, I love that, Ali, and I totally agree with you. And I think, yeah, I'm proud actually of how much I've embraced everything. I feel proud that I've got out there and I've learned it, and I've not sat in this one place saying, "Oh no, we never did it like that in my day."
Yes.
But I think what I have this wonderful benefit of realizing what it was like when we didn't have this stuff. So where I come from, and you know this because you've read my posts and we've been LinkedIn buddies, I come from that human place. I still want to have this human connection. So there's a part of me wants to fight the automation and fight the online stuff, but because I still want this connection, you know, between people. So I guess that's where I sit in it all. I want to ask you a few things just about what you do, so that the audience listening get a real feel for, you know, what you bring to the world as an entrepreneur. I've got things here from your LinkedIn that say you do two things in terms of, one, creating an engaging social presence. That's what you would help me to do. Yep. And the second part is the generating leads, sales and revenue from that.
Yes. So what I do, you know, let's translate that, right?
Yeah.
So people can understand. So I run a social and digital marketing agency called iSocialU here in Dallas, Texas. And because there are a lot of people who do social media. They do Facebook marketing, Instagram marketing, you know, LinkedIn, everything, right? So what I tell people, you know, when you think of businesses, it's not just about Facebook marketing, Facebook ads, Instagram ads. It's not about those tools because they always change. It's about, look at your business. It's about your business and your target audience and how you can help them, add value to them, so you can kind of create this community and in a way that it also supports your business. So when we work with clients, we look at the business and we're like, okay, so this is let's say a furniture store based in Dallas, Texas. So who are the people that buy furniture? What are the type of problems? What are the daily things that they go through? And can we create that type of content on behalf of this business so we can create and cultivate that community? And then obviously when you're a business, you want leads, sales, revenue, profit, right? So you're not building the community just for the sake of it. You're also creating campaigns or creating, those lead magnets or sales campaigns to drive that people closer to, making that buying decision and hopefully to buy it from you.
Yeah. And everything I believe in terms of the fact that it doesn't matter where you sell it or even what you're selling. It's still that same thing that you create that relationship and you understand the why. You talk about the why, don't
exactly.
you?
Yes, a lot. And see, that's why when people work with me or my company, they're not coming to us and saying, hey, we want Facebook marketing or we want, Instagram ads or LinkedIn. They're coming to us with the mindset of, hey, here's our business and our goal is to grow. What do you think? Right. So then we help them with those two things. One, let's create a community of people that's your target audience. And obviously, this, right? When we talk about creating community, it's not one-way street. Community is like this, two-way. You and I have been connected and adding value to each other's content for probably 10 months. And now here we are, kind of getting on this podcast. And I think businesses sort of forget that when we are in a mindset of growing our business, we think it's all about buy my book or buy the furniture from my store. It's not. Yeah, you got to tell people what you sell, but there's a lot that needs to happen before that to build that relationship.
Yeah, and I guess I would sum that up with the fact that it's trust.
Yes.
This is the thing, isn't it? Another key word is that's how we just instinctively buy, through trust and impulse and through gut, our gut reaction. And if you can't build that first, or you don't build that first and you go straight into sell, these salespeople who just go straight in for the sale.
Yeah.
That's what's given it such a bad reputation, and that's what kills it. We need that relationship, don't we?
Yeah. And I always say, if people know, like, and trust you, they'll do business with you. Or actually, if people know, like, and trust you, they'll consider doing business with you, right?
Yeah.
A lot of, I think, my personal, and maybe I'll ask you if you agree with it. I think when this, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, when social media came onto the scene, the Facebook, Instagram, and all these channels, all of us, and including myself, I think as business owners, we thought this is the answer to all of our problems. This is the place where we go and sell our products. And I think now, five years into the social landscape, we have realized it's not just sales channel.
No.
Right? So I think the next step now is exactly what you said. It's about the relationships. It's about the trust. And once you establish those, then asking for the sales becomes much easier.
Yeah, it does completely. And the very early days of LinkedIn, Ali, that I remember, it was all about sell this, sell that, buy this, buy that. Here's my offer. Here's my product. This is what I do. And you still see in the feed, you still see those adverts pop up now and again, or the posts, I should say, from people who probably haven't realized how LinkedIn now works, because it is so much more about storytelling, about thought leadership, about learning, about sharing knowledge, about having conversation. And that's why I love LinkedIn, because for me, that is what sales is about, and that's how we build those relationships. So
and I give people, I think our common friend Eleanor, she's a great example, and include you as well. I tell people that I produce a lot of content, but I don't think I'm good with words. I can produce content, but I'm not a storyteller. But when I look at you guys, to me, that's like the way you tell stories, the way you connect people. Because once you kind of connect people at the deeper level, at the human level, then it becomes easier, because then people open up with you. Then people start telling you, hey, I need to buy this, but actually here's the actual problem that I'm going through in my business.
Yeah.
Right. And then once you get into those type of conversation, then you don't feel like you're pushing sales. Then you feel like you're adding much more than just giving that person a product, right? So
Yeah.
it's much more deeper. And I look at your content and some other people to actually learn how to tell stories. I'm not good at that.
But I think, you see, the thing is, you may not realize, Ali, that you really are good at it. You just don't necessarily do it, as you say, with the words. I tell you what I want to mention, and people, perhaps I'll give them all of the ways, and you'll tell them how they can find you at the end of this podcast. But one of the things I love that you do, I've got it on here because I'm just looking it up as we're speaking, is something you call #Let'sGraph.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I absolutely love this. And this is when people look it up after the show. This is where you literally just draw these very simple graphs and diagrams, and they tell a story, and you don't realize it actually, how much it's telling a story. It's particularly fabulous, I think. And of course, it's what I now associate with you. Ali is Let's Graph, you know?
Let's Graph, yeah. It kind of becomes your brand or your recognition. And funny thing, if I tell you the story behind it, you're going to laugh at me. So, back in, I think, I want to say 2014, 2015, I saw like everyone is blogging, right? Everyone is producing content on WordPress and Blogger back in the day. And I was like, I want to be like them, right? I want to produce content. I want to be known as a blogger. But then I was like, but I can't, for me, English is my third language. It's not even my second language. It's my third language.
Wow.
So I was like, I was really bad, especially with the grammar and the written English. I'm really bad still. And I was like, I want to blog, which means I want to share my ideas, right? But I'm really bad at, writing. So what do I do? So I kept thinking, and I think it took me like 3 or 4 months to just kind of, because I would ignore it. But then again, when I'm thinking alone, it'll come back to me. Hey, go back. You have some ideas that you want to share to the world. So that's where I kind of thought about. It's less about the medium and more about what I have here and sharing it with other people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it kind of the birth of Let's Graph was, in those days, I was like, okay, forget about how people do blogging today. I'm just going to draw, if I'm reading something and I have an idea, if this is how I understood the concept that I'm reading, I'm just going to draw it and then share it with other people.
Yeah.
So and slowly it became, it got picked up by 9gag. It was picked up by Brian Tracy's Facebook page and a couple of other like mega pages. But yeah, now like a lot of people, it's my like brand recognition. But the idea is super simple. Anything that I understand or I'm learning, I try to draw in simple graph. And I'm a huge believer. If you can't like simplify in your head, that's a clear indication that I didn't understand that.
Yeah. And I love it. I just love it. So I've got some in front of me. So there's this one where you've just got a circle, big circle, and it says all the information we have. And then inside it, there's this tiny black dot, and it says how much we use.
Yes.
And and I love it. And then of course, when you post these on LinkedIn, you then put a whole dialogue around it. It's just sort of, what questions you're asking us to think about. But it's just it's so impactful and it's so simple. And that's what I like about it, because it makes you think. You think, oh my gosh, we have all this information, but actually how much do we really use? And I guess the question from that for me is, how much do we really need to consume in terms for us to actually benefit? Yeah.
And Jules, that's looking back at my life, right, and all the progress that I've made so far. I graduated with electrical engineering. That was my degree. I worked in software. I worked for companies like GE, Microsoft, Sprint, like really mega brands. And now I run my own business, right? So I've gone through that transition, right? For someone who was in 9 to 5 and then made the transition. And I've created some of my own startups too. When I look back, the time periods when I made the most progress was the time period I was not consuming anything.
Yeah.
I was in the production sort of like mode. So I think going back to your question, what I've realized is it's actually, I think our brain is kind of crazy. It's hard to say, it's hard to be like, hey, I'm not going to consume, go to like zero consumption. I'm not going to consume anything. So what I do today is if I see something I want to consume, like a blog post or article or video, I save it. I just tell my brain, hey, this is a cool video that about, let's say, Facebook ads. I don't want to miss on this because it's a FOMO, right? That FOMO kind of plays with our mind. So I say, I'm not gonna, I will watch it, but let me save it and I'll go watch it on Saturday, because Saturday is my consumption day.
Yeah.
And then what happens is on Saturday, when I go back to those, 50 pieces of articles that I saved, I look at half of them and I'm like, no, I don't think I need them anymore. And then other 50, I might go through them, skim through it. And then there might be like 10 that I'll like really, consume in detail. So I think that process kind of helps you manage it. So whatever that process is for you, one thing I can tell the, people who are watching or listening, look back at, maybe a month of your life, or let's say 2 weeks. If most of your time you spend on consuming content versus producing, it's going to be very difficult to achieve whatever your goals or whatever your dreams are. But so that's an indication. Look back, and if you are spending more time consuming, then you absolutely want to find a way to manage that. And my system is, there was a time period that I would say that I had, and I was like, I'm not going to consume anything. And it was actually really, because then I kept thinking about that article. I kept thinking about that video, and I'm like, hey, what am I missing? That video promises, 3 things that you should know about Facebook ads, and I know 2. What's the third one, right? So now my system is, I tell my brain, okay, I'll come back to it. Yeah. And when I actually go back to it, then there's automatically then half of the things I don't find valuable anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So whatever you do find, I think it's also looking inside, self-awareness. Look inside and see, why are you consuming so much stuff, and then how can you manage it? And maybe I'm not even saying remove it. I'm saying, manage your consumption.
Yeah, I think it's a great tip, because I think we have what we call in the UK, I don't know if you have this in the US, we call it FOMO. So fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of it. Like you said, I know 2, what's the other one?
Yes.
And so we're always frightened we're just missing something that's going to be really valuable. But then what we don't do then, some of us, we don't actually use what we've already consumed that we actually could go out and start actioning. So we're almost procrastinating, really, aren't we? Because we're just consuming and then actually not doing anything with it. So it's a really interesting discussion, I think, around how much information is now available to us to consume.
And you just reminded me of something really interesting. I think a lot of people talk about this concept of, reading just in time, or I forgot the actual term, that you only read and consume what you're going to use right after reading it. Right. So let's say if we're creating a business, or we're launching a course together, and we're not sure how to do the video editing. So let's go consume the content related to that, and forget about the marketing and promotion and everything else. Because our next step is the video editing.
Yeah.
And I actually tried it, but for some reason I wasn't able to make it work for me. And again, I think it goes back to, being self-aware and then managing your life and your dreams and your goals. But theoretically, I think that's a great idea, that you only consume, if you look at a piece of article or piece of video, before you consume it, ask yourself, am I going to take an action right after consumption?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? The answer is yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that works. And I actually think that's how I do it. I think that's actually how I do it. So I loved chatting through that. So I've got some questions. Right. My first question is, what is growth hacking?
Ooh, okay. So growth hacking, there's a lot of I think different marketers define it in different ways. To me, growth hacking is everything that marketing should be. So when we say, if I tell you, Jules, I'm gonna, build my brand on LinkedIn by producing content, that's kind of that's a marketing tactic, right? It's a marketing channel. I'm gonna put my content. But if I say, hey, Jules, LinkedIn is an interesting channel. For next 2 weeks, I'm gonna produce videos every other day, and then look at the data and see if my reach has increased, or if I get more comments or not. In the second example, now I put some criteria that I can measure. And then at the end of 2 weeks, I can look back and see if I failed or passed. based on the criteria that I pick. So by definition, that's growth hacking.
Okay.
Because you pick some metrics that you're gonna measure based on some tactics, and then at the end of that, you look back and you're like, okay, I tried it based on the results based on the metrics I picked in the beginning, it didn't work. So what's next? Should I go test Instagram, or should I go test Facebook ads, or should I go test SEO? Right. So, but to me, it's not. That's how like people define it. The purpose of growth hacking or growth hackers is the growth, right?
Yeah.
So whatever business is, we want to grow the traffic or the email leads. That's it, the purpose. But to me, that's also the purpose of marketing or social media marketing or other things, right? So that's how I define it. A lot of people, if you search on Wikipedia, you're going to find a different definition.
yeah, but that's why I wanted to ask you what it meant, because obviously you use it, and I always think we're all very unique, aren't we, in how we kind of come into the world. And I thought, well, what does it actually mean to Ali? Because you talked about it. So it's testing, really. I see it as it's just testing, isn't it?
Yes.
And I guess if I'm really honest, I'm not sure I can be bothered to do that sort of thing. And that sounds so terrible, Ali, doesn't it? Because I guess it doesn't, that's not the stuff that lights my soul, that's kind of mechanic stuff. And that's the stuff I'd love someone else to do for me, because I don't really want to do it myself. So,
and I think that's the word, that's a beautiful word, way of saying it, testing. If you look at a lot of time in businesses who are selling on their website, SaaS businesses or e-commerce businesses. So sometimes they even, by changing the color of their button, they can improve their results, right? So that could also be a growth test. And then, the way I kind of is testing of any kind, imagine, and actually you may have done it and not realize you did it. So looking back at your, journey of, let's say 1 year or 2 years on LinkedIn, you may have realized there's certain type of content that works well for you versus other type. And what you could do is, moving forward, produce more of that content.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I do see that. I do see that happen. I guess really I probably do take a little bit of notice of it, but it's just like not my favorite, best thing ever, Okay, so my next question, this is Questions with Jules and Ali, if you're listening in. So which social media channels are leading right now?
You say that again. You broke up.
Okay. Which social media channels are leading right now? Who's leading the way?
Hands down, I feel last 7-8 months, probably 2018, LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn used to be, like we discussed in the beginning or offline, used to be a resume site. You would go to LinkedIn when you need a new job, right? But I think they've made a lot of changes. Introduction of native video, improving the messages. Now they've improved the company pages. They're also improving the groups. So it really becomes a platform. I call LinkedIn is the new Facebook minus the memes and the kids pictures, right? Or the cat memes or the baby pictures. So I feel they made a huge improvement, especially if you have a business and your audience is B2B, other business owners, other professionals, maybe freelancers, executive suite people, then LinkedIn is a place that you should absolutely look at. The other one, so that would be number one for me. The other one, Instagram has really, I think, for younger generation, and if your product or your business has physical element or is visually appealing. In other words, let's say you have fashion, you're in fashion industry, or food industry, right? So those are the things that people naturally gravitate towards, and Instagram is an interesting place because they have also added in last 1 year a lot of interesting features.
Because they've got IGTV now, haven't they? Instagram TV.
Instagram stories, and then IGTV, and now they're making more. They're changing the way the profile looks like. So it's the changes they've made it interesting. But I want to add one thing, because we're talking about social media channels. I truly believe it's not about the channel. So for example, how many gyms are there? In UK, probably a lot. In US, we probably 24-hour fitness, LA Fitness, Planet Fitness, hundreds of gyms, right? It doesn't matter which gym I go to. If I have a good strategy and plan and consistency, I will get results.
Yeah.
So I think it's less about what's the best channel for businesses, more about we got to think about what's our business, where is our target audience, how can we go build trust with them by adding value to their life. And some people, because we can both pick examples of people who are crushing it on LinkedIn, and other group of people who are crushing it on, let's say, Instagram, and then YouTube, and even Facebook, right? So you can succeed on any of these channels, but it really comes back to your business and where your target audience is.
Yeah, it's such a great answer, and it's kind of the answer I really was hoping you'd give me, because I have figured that was the right answer, for this discussion. And I think the reason I asked it, Ali, is I know there's a lot of my listeners, and I am now I'm building my profile as a podcaster. Mm-hmm. They're entrepreneurial. There are a lot of female entrepreneurs. And I think they are one of their big questions is, well, which channel works now? Because, Facebook have changed their algorithms. Facebook doesn't behave how it used to. And we have got really hung up, as we say, on the channel, as opposed to thinking about, well, actually, where are the people hanging out who actually we want to serve? And what are we going to say to them, and how are we going to connect with them? So I love the answer to that. And I think
quickly, I want to mention something, because someone asked me this question, I think, a few days ago here in Dallas. And I say, usually, if you're thinking about channels and which channels you should go, there are two questions I usually tell people to think about. And let's see if I remember those. I think the first one is, which channel, like where the audience that you want to reach, the people that you want to help, right? So where are they at? Right? Which channel they're using? That's one. The second is, the question you want to ask is, what's easy for you? Because I think the magic is not in perfect channel and perfect content. Magic is in consistency.
Yes.
Right? So if doing video is super easy for me, I can go stay consistent on, let's say, LinkedIn and produce and build my brand. If doing video is not easy for me and it's super, super hard, but podcasting is really easy, right? Then I can crush it on that channel. So those are the two questions I usually tell people to think about, when they're trying to pick the channels they should focus on. Yeah,
it's a great content for us to talk about again, I think. Really useful. And again, of course, there's YouTube. We haven't mentioned YouTube, Ali.
Yes, and I actually have a lot of content on YouTube. One of the other things I do is I create online courses. So I end up creating a lot of video content, and then YouTube is it's the second biggest search engine.
I know,
right? So there's no behind Google. So absolutely, I think if you're any how-to content, like if you feel like your target audience can benefit from how-to. Like, how to create Facebook ads, how to do podcasting, how to do whatever it may be, then YouTube is a really good place. And again, you'll get results from YouTube only if you stay consistent and add value.
Yeah.
If you're only going to produce 1 or 2 videos and show up every other month, then it's not going to work. No,
exactly. And again, it's about consistency, making sure the message is connecting with that ideal client.
Absolutely.
But also, for me, I think it's about the content I produce. How can I actually then cut that? And we talked about this before we started this podcast. You can start to take small bits of content you've produced and then post it in different ways as well. And I think a lot of us forget about that. We're always thinking about we need to keep continuing to produce new content all the time. And actually, there's a lot of stuff we've already produced we can start to mess about with. Repurpose. Yeah, exactly. Which is exciting, isn't it? So, I mean, and the other thing, Ali, just to mention my book, because why wouldn't I mention my book? But there's so much content in there. Now I need to start saying, right, what can I pull out of my book that I can then start using as content to get people interested in my methodology, but also my book, and me and my brand. So.
Exactly. And then if your book has, let's say different chapters, right? So you can talk about, those chapters, those themes. You can have like a theme month. So in February or January, you're talking about your chapter 1 from like different angles. Because, you have a book, but to put that book out there, there's probably like years of like research or knowledge or, you know, other thing that you that went through, right? So that all could be content, you know, for the book, but for your social media. But here's another thing. You could also, let's say you have a section, and this is just an example, right? Let's say you have a section in the book about growth hack. I know you don't, because your book is focused on sales, but just imagine for a second you have a section on growth hacking. And now here's a crazy guy, Ali. He's not mentioned in the book, or he's not part of the book, but he knows something about growth hacking. So you can have a conversation with him on the topic of growth hacking and just get his perspective, and then also bring or talk about your perspective that you have in the book. And then it becomes a value add for the audience.
Yeah, and actually we could do that, Ali, because there's bits in my book that we definitely have that lovely synergy about, you know, like the why and connecting with the emotions, and, you know, we could definitely do some stuff. And collaboration, Ali, collaboration.
Oh, absolutely. That's the collaboration over competition, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a real buzzword at the moment, but it's so powerful. And if people really get their heads around how wonderful collaboration can be, you know, then they really will win, I think.
Yes.
You know? It's a biggie now.
It's a biggie. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, you know, one thing a lot of people go to, you know, social to create content, and they feel like, hey, they feel like it's a huge burden, or it's a big task. You know, in the beginning, if you're just starting out and you just start paying attention and listening to other people, you can find, number one, you can learn. Number two, you can also find ways to collaborate with them. And I think there's so many examples of people who they built their brand by the podcast shows or by video interviews, or in other words, they started collaborations with other people.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's a huge opportunity to, you know, to build your own brand or your business brand.
Massive. So there's one other question I had around your thoughts on Facebook ads, based on the fact that Facebook has gone through so many changes, and people in my kind of circles, they're losing a bit of faith with Facebook. You know, I know we said we wouldn't necessarily focus on channels, but I just thought, what's your take now on actually investing money in things like Facebook ads, Ali?
So just to, you know, my agency, I Social You, 80% of our revenue comes from managing Facebook ads of other people.
Wow.
So we're huge on Facebook ads. But what I tell people is, it's interesting. So Facebook ads do work, just like our examples of, you know, every gym works, but if you use it the right way.
Yeah.
You know, every channel works. YouTube works, LinkedIn works, you know, Instagram works, but if you use it the right way. Same thing I feel is about Facebook ads. Facebook, there's no doubt that Facebook ad, in my mind, it's you know, the best form of online advertising right now. With, you know, Google being expensive, YouTube ads, you know, kind of part of Google and being expensive. But here, the mistake people make is they feel like they go for the sale, right? They feel like, I have this offer and I know my target audience, and let me put that offer in front of them. And then they realize, they spend all that money on the ads and they realize people are not buying it. I feel the mistake, that's the biggest mistake people make. The way to use Facebook ads, and I'm trying to, you know, condense it so I don't go on for like 2 hours, because I can talk about this for like 2 hours, is create a system. And I'll give you an example. You know, forget about Facebook ads, you know, social media for a second. Back in the sort of like Stone Age, right? So how did we do business? The way we did business was 3 steps. Step number 1 was, we will go, let's say I'm a lawyer or you're an accountant, we'll go meet a lot of people, right? So that's a step number 1. And let's say if you met 100 people, we actually don't like all 100, right? So out of 100, we may like, you know, maybe 10. So step number 2 was, out of those 10, you know, 100, do coffee or lunch or build one-to-one connection with those, you know, 10 people. That's step number 2. And then the step number 3 is, you know, the close. From those 10 people, you know, now you're going to do business with maybe 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So that was the process we took in the, you know, pre-social or, you know, before social media, Facebook ads. So meet people, you know, build one-to-one relationship, and then sell.
Yeah.
I feel that's and I call it attract, build, and convert. So ABC.
Yes.
I feel that's the same process that you need to implement if you want to get results from Facebook ads. So use the ads type that are attracting the right type of audience to maybe your Facebook page, or maybe your landing page, or maybe your website, and do the campaigns or system that builds a relationship, and then try to convert them.
I love it.
So if you have a Facebook ad, if someone comes to me and they're like, hey, we're creating a Facebook ads, we're gonna spend $5,000, and we're driving traffic to our website so they can buy my book. And I'm like, who did you target? We're targeting authors and consultants and blah, blah, blah. It may work, but it may also not work.
Yeah.
Because it's just throwing money out there. There are a lot of people on Facebook, so someone may end up buying. But if you create a system where you're like, hey, here's our audience, and first we're going to attract them to us by here's the top, from our research, here's the top 10 questions people have in our niche. We're going to answer all of those questions for free through video content, and we're going to post those on our Facebook page. And then in step number 2, we're going to watch how many people watch 50% of our video, and then capture that audience. And then in step number 3, now those people have shown interest in the way we sell or the way we solve their problems. Now we're going to offer them a book.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's right? Perfect. It makes so much sense, Ali.
Yeah. So to summarize, I would say, Facebook ads, don't look at Facebook ads as a sort of like a one-time sort of solution. If you create a system with the right strategy, it works.
Yeah. I love it. No, it just makes so much sense to me. And it's back, you're so right. It's back to how we always used to do it, how we make relationships, how we would expect to buy something, it's just great. It's spot on. And actually, I've never thought about Facebook adverts like that, if I'm really honest with you. I probably tried a couple of times, tried to sell something on it, failed miserably, and said, oh, they're a load of rubbish.
Yeah. To me, because this is my circle, and I talk to a lot of people. The way I kind of filter out, if someone tells me I'm using Facebook ads to do X, Y, Z, in my mind I know it could be they could succeed, or same chance 50-50, they could also fail, right? But if someone tells me, hey Ali, we're doing Facebook ad because X, Y, Z, now in their mind they have a reason to test something. So that person to me is more likely to succeed because he has some assumptions that he's testing, and maybe he's right, but maybe he's wrong. If he's wrong, he's gonna go change his metrics or change his methodology.
Yeah.
So take the lesson, that the takeaway I would leave people with is take the systematic. Don't just throw money on Facebook ads. Take the system. If you don't have the right strategy, if it doesn't make sense in your head, don't do it.
No.
Have the right strategy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could talk to you for hours, Ali. I knew it was going to be like this. I knew it was going to be like this. So I guess just as an exchange, you've obviously followed me, watched my content, had conversations online with me. What do you take from the kind of content I'm putting out? What's the key messages you're getting from my stuff, just out of interest?
So I think I probably mentioned in the beginning too, there are a couple of other, our common friend and then yourself, the content when I look at your content, I actually sometimes take notes because I want to see how, when you started the first line, especially anyone watching it, go check you out on LinkedIn and read your statuses, how you tie up the opening line of your LinkedIn status to the last line. Like there's a story in between, right? Sometimes you guys will start with a personal experience, and then it's tied to a business lesson people can walk away with.
Yeah.
So when I'm watching your content, that's what how do you tell stories, right? How do you tie up personal experiences with business lessons?
Yeah.
Right. And when you have a book, then how do you talk about that book? Not like, hey, go buy my book, but based on like here's different lessons. And by the way, I also talked about that in the book.
Yeah.
So I think one thing I would, I'll also tell myself to play more or do more experiments with the video.
Yeah.
Just to see like how different type of video content does it. And I would probably say the same thing to you or other people. But I think that's what when I look at your content, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I'm paying attention to how you guys are telling stories. I'm paying attention to how you relate personal stories to the business lessons. And also how I think another really good thing is you're not and I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I put content out there and it's sort of like it's self-serving. It's just like, hey, I did this, I was successful, I'm so great, blah, 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 right? But a lot of your content it makes me think. Like the last line of your content is there's a question or there's something to think about. So you spark conversations.
Yeah.
Or you make people think. And sometimes, to be honest with you, sometimes I read your content and there's something to think about and I go blank. I don't know what to say. I'm like, okay, let's think about that for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the great ones that I did not long ago, in the last week it was actually, was the hashtag year from now.
Yes.
And that came from my Facebook group. I did it in a challenge and I just suddenly came up with it. It just came from nowhere. And I thought, what if we did a video as if it's 12 months time as to what we're doing in our business? And it had this massive impact. And it was so interesting. People were, I'm going to do this. And they were dreaming their dreams. They were imagining how far they'd come. We've done this. I've written another book. I've had this conference. I've got this new side of the business. And I was watching these videos thinking, this is wonderful. And then afterwards, what happened was they were actually making action points to reach those goals.
Yeah.
And it was something so simple. And then, of course, I've started it on LinkedIn, and there's been quite a few people now have done videos and they've tagged me. And it's amazing to see the power of conversation.
And you see how, I don't know that probably it's been a couple of days since I see your last type of or last piece of content from you, but I still remember, right?
Yeah.
So there are we see a lot of content. Sometimes there's a person, I know that person is creating content, but in my mind, I can't think of, or I can't relate to what type or what theme. I think when it comes to, we talk a lot about personal branding or building your brand. That's what I think you got to look inside, see what you're good at, and consistently talk about those things. And then people will automatically start, relating you to those. Like people could relate me to the graphs.
Yeah.
Or people relate you to the way you tell stories, and those get people thinking and get people talking. So I think that's a really good example of anyone who wants to build their brand.
Yeah, definitely. So just to kind of close it now, to bring it to an end, I'm really sad because I've loved it. We'll have to do it again, Ali. What is your one big piece of advice? And we've had a lot of advice from you in this podcast, so it's been amazing content. But that just one last final thought. What do you think it would be, Ali, for the listeners?
So, what I would say, because my circle, I'm connected to a lot of business owners or people who are just starting their businesses. And I think a lot of probably our audience too, they're either freelancers or thinking about starting their business or going from 9 to 5 to their business. And, sometimes it looks scary. Like sometimes you're like, hey, I don't know, I want to build this huge business, or I want to maybe start my business, but I don't know what to do. It looks, a lot of other people are doing it and I know it's possible, but I was thinking the same thing last year, and this year I'm thinking the same thing. What I would say is find a way to take a small step. To me, the way I feel, even like looking back on my life, big goals are great. Big dreams are, cool. But I think the magic happens in small steps. Progress creates momentum. Progress creates, happiness in my mind. So if your goal, one example, if you tell me a specific situation, I can give you like some ideas. If you want to go from 9 to 5 to, let's say, starting a business, can you find a local meetup in your city and go hang out with those people who are actually doing what you want to do, right? So that could be a baby step, because you might be like, hey, I'm stuck in 9 to 5. I want to create my own business. It looks really cool, but I don't know what to do, right? So that's what I would say, like, whatever you want to achieve in 2019 or even beyond, do dream big goals, or do dream, have big, goals for your life, but kind of like, forget those for a second and focus on the process. And find that what's that next small step that you can take. And if you want to analogy, if I want to go, let's say my goal is to have 6-pack abs, right? So that's a really good and big goal, right? But I'm not going to have six-pack abs by just dreaming that every single day. I have to go to gym every single day, right? And do the same exercises every single day for 6 months. So I had a goal and dream, but then I had to forget about that and then create a system in my life.
Yeah, it's so
that's what
true. I love that, Ali. Ali, I say sometimes that from small steps come giant strides.
Yes.
And I don't know if I read it somewhere or whether I even just made it up, but it's kind of like, it makes so much sense to me. So that's really great advice. I have so loved talking to you. So how do people find you, Ali? What have they got to look for to find you?
So my website is isocialyou.com. And if you search my name, Ali Mirza, on any social media channel, I will be on there and we'll be producing lots of content.
Yeah, and I'll make sure I put the links on all of the podcasts and any posts that I do as well. So thank you, Ali. I've had such a great conversation with you, another human conversation. It's been really awesome to finally meet you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jules, for having me. And anyone, watching or listening, if you guys have questions for me or Jules on sales or marketing, do reach out to us, because I think one of the things, both maybe you can relate to this, one of the things that keeps us going and producing this content is we want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what type of problems you're going through. We want to know what your goals are. So because sometimes if someone who is 2 steps ahead of me, that person can with his or her advice can save me a lot of time. Yeah. So any question, comments, feedback, or even if we said something or I said something that you don't agree with, do let us know.
Yeah, definitely. We're open for anything. Bring it Absolutely. On. Yes. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for listening. If you've been listening to this podcast and you loved it, then please subscribe. We're on SoundCloud and we're also on iTunes. I'd love to have you follow, because I'm going to keep producing amazing content with amazing people like Ali. So it only remains for me to say ta-da for now.
You've just been listening to the Human Conversation podcast with Jules White. To find out more about the other work that Jules does, please visit her website www.liveitloveitsellit.co.uk. And if you enjoyed the podcast, then please do leave a rating and review on the platform you use to enjoy her show. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.